Is there a list of areas where we need a clarity and that has been sought by the people who are working in this?
Oh, that's a
IBC?
constant. There are enough work groups who are coming up with a lot of issues around clarity, around tax, around, so many things are not clarified today. I'll give you another example. The law allows you to write down the capital completely.
Right.
Now, how do you write down a capital in a listed company where it is not allowed to get delisted? So can you actually hold? Does 25% need to be held by the public, even otherwise? So SEBI has not given an exception.
Right.
So the view is that there are many such amendments which will come as we go along, as we see the process. But I think there are many larger issues to be dealt with, things like contingencies, things like extension of periods, those kind of issues. Or the banks actually being able to evaluate the bids in a proper manner and have a proper negotiation on some of these deals. So I think those are larger issues that will be dealt with.
2 points to make. There's an insolvency law committee which has already been formed by the government to look at the amendments from the learnings of the last year, which is phenomenal in the sense that the government has been very proactive in forming this committee. And in fact, the various suggestions which have come in are very sensible. As Abizer points out, there are various committees. There's a lot of interest, a lot of activity, a lot of thought going on in the IBC space, which means a lot of very sensible recommendations are coming in. So we will see in the first quarter, maybe in the second quarter, some very useful amendments to the IBC. But what's also important to keep in mind is it's remarkable how reactive and in some cases proactive the government has been in this space.
That even I have been very surprised at. Yes,
Which
throughout this process.
Very encouraging.
Yes.
From the government, from the judiciary, from the regulators, it's very, very heartening.
So we are in for many more changes which will really clear the path and smoothen the path for IBC, it seems. As far as the entire process completion is concerned, Abizer, anyways, normal transactions take 1.5 years to actually convert from the time we conceptualize it. 270 days, is it a realistic target, or do we think that we will just be about coming up with a definitive agreement and the actual process completion may take much longer than that, and therefore the money coming in to the banks, which they're really looking forward to as part of the resolution, would take much longer than anticipated by the markets?
Well, that's true. The actual physical cash may come in later. I think what 270 days will achieve certainty as to who the buyer is, subject to, of course, conditions precedent. Some of them will be external approvals. There's Competition Commission, there is many other authorities which actually govern some of these companies, like Minerals and Mining, Telecom Authority, whatever. So I think those approvals obviously will take time to come. And deals in India have taken year and a half to complete.
Right.
So I think there will be a process beyond 270 days that will happen. But there will not be another bidding process beyond 270 days for sure.
Yes.
We hope, of course. And the issue today the government has to deal with technicality is that what happens, who runs the company after the day 270 until the takeover by the company by the new bidder.
Right.
And I think that's a big gap that we have today.
Yeah, and there again, some relaxation, some changes have been sought, or is there any solution or no inside?
Thinking is going around as to what to do, but what the government also does not want to do, and really appreciate that, is that they don't want to vitiate the 270-day sanctity.
Right.
Because this can go on and on. These extensions can go on and on. I think what they need to come up with is the protection to the IP to continue in his fiduciary capacity until the closure of the deal, provided there is a binding term sheet by day 270.
Okay, one important question. In the interest of the business, underlying business which is getting sold, if the IP has to continue holding on to the business for time immemorial, more than a year and a half, what happens to the business? Because IP is not basically an operational expert in this particular case.
The job of an IP is to maintain status quo and reasonably run the business. It's not his profile or his brief to grow the business phenomenally. But as long as he can maintain the value of the enterprise through the period of the IBC and until a bidder takes over, I think that's good enough. That can happen. I don't think that'll get impacted.
All right, so one question mark still remains on the business and how it grows and how it sustains while the whole sale process also continues, because there are many approvals to be taken and many hurdles that we need to cross in the IBC. Okay, gentlemen, this discussion is ongoing. I'm sure over the next 270 days we will continue to come up with newer topics to discuss on this. But as of now, thanks so much for joining us and giving your expert take. We'll have to see how the regulatory framework really reacts to each of of the hurdles faced in deal making while the IBC-led processes are on. So there could be many changes that we will see along our way, and we'll get you more experts on each of those topics as we get along with the IBC process and that 270-day period as well. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of Big Deal. Stay tuned for more on CNBC TV18.